going on in your city, in your streets. Never back down like Tyrel, and the truth is what you seek. To analyze, investigate from the bottom to the top. You speak your mind like Sean Stone, whether they like it or not. I got Tabetha, Miss Wallace, with the wisdom and the pearl. Between the outrage and the evidence, what's going on in this world.
Watching the hawks, watching the hawks, watching the hawks. Listen when they talk.
Welcome everyone to Watching the Hawks. I am Tyrel Ventura.
And I'm Tabetha Wallace.
And joining us today in the Hawk's Nest is the former electoral manager with Our Revolution, national political outreach coordinator for Bernie 2016, clearly a very busy man, Nick Brana. Nick, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Tyrel, Tabetha.
So,
it's awesome.
So Nick, I want to kick off right now real quick and say, according to Gallup polls, 39% of U.S. citizens call themselves independent voters. That's compared to 31% who label themselves Democrat and 28% who call themselves Republicans. Now, you see in this graph right now, you know, there's been a little bit of a dip down from like 43% in independents. But they're still the bigger slice of the American pie, you know, than Dems and Repubs. Why do you think that is? Why do we see so many independents, people calling themselves independents in the U.S. today?
They are by far the largest slice. The latest figure from last year, the average is, I think, 45%. And Gallup actually says that by 2020, it's going to be 50%. And this is a trend that's long time coming. It's actually been happening for about 12 years. And what's been happening is that both the major parties used to be in the high, kind of the mid-30s in party affiliation, and over that time it has steadily, way before Bernie, you know, steadily dissolved. Both of the parties have dissolved into independent status. And so now we're at this point where independents are almost half of the country, and more than half of the country, a majority of Americans, almost 60%, are calling for a major new party.
Yes. Why do you think that is? Why do you think why do you think there's this new push?
Because there's this just amazing dynamic in our country where we call ourselves a democracy, and yet we have two major parties, neither of which represents the American people on a lot of the issues that are of biggest concern to them. You know, medical bills, free public college, things like inequality. You know, there's no party that represents the position that most Americans have on all of these issues, all the issues that Bernie ran on. That's why his campaign was such an explosive kind of endeavor, you know, in just 1 year.
So one of the things that you're doing this weekend here in D.C. Is that you're seeking to draft Bernie for an independent run in 2020. First, well, two questions. Why do you think Bernie is the best option right now for a third-party run? And what is the reaction that you've had from people about this?
Well, Bernie Sanders, the way that we see it at Draft Bernie for People's Party is that Bernie Sanders has already built a new party. He's effectively already created it. Because when you think of, well, what is a political party? You think, well, it's a fundraising, you know, apparatus. So Bernie Sanders, you know, has this massive donor, you know, kind of infrastructure, just millions of donors across the country. It was more than 2 million donors in the end. They gave $250 million. So that exists. You think, well, it's also a volunteer, you know, infrastructure. Again, just hundreds of thousands of volunteers across the country, you know, ready and dying to work, as our effort has shown, you know, for creating a party that actually represents them. And then on top of that, you know, it's a message. Bernie Sanders' campaign popularized the progressive message, and it built an electoral coalition. So that campaign effectively built a new party that's outside of both of the major parties. And a poll showed that if he had gone against Trump in the general election, he would have creamed him by an amount that would have doubled what was considered Obama's landslide victory in 2008. And that would have just redrawn the map.
A lot of what you're hearing now, because now, of course, Hillary Clinton's going out on her book tour, and now there's sort of this thing of we're all trying to move on and move forward. Yeah. And there seems to be this pull to relitigate everything, and whether it's on Hillary's side or on Bernie's side, there's this idea that we all have to relitigate the 2016 election over and over and over again. I think we'd all like to just move forward. What do you think was the thing about Bernie that sparked it? There's something about him, because he seems like, I mean, at the beginning, 2 years ago, everybody's like, this guy's, come on.
Exactly.
Who's going to vote for a 70-year-old socialist?
And that's like a distant memory to people now.
I know.
You know? It's like now it's just taken for granted that Bernie Sanders is this incredible figure, you know. And it's like, but 2 years ago, the Hillary Clinton campaign was celebrating the fact that they were going to run against him because they thought, well, we knew we were going to have a left challenger, and this guy's never going to get any traction, you know. But what Bernie's campaign proved, and what I think we again at Draft Bernie for a People's Party have proved, is that the general kind of factors that go into the success for a political endeavor now, a party, a campaign, are not what the establishment tells you they are. The establishment tells you need money, you need name recognition, you know, you need ads. You need to be in with the corporate media. You need to have the party's approval. You know, you need the donor class's approval. Bernie had none of those things when he ran. He literally started with nothing, running against one of the most recognized, you know, names in the world, a household name, and yet Bernie Sanders he effectively won that primary had it not been for the party stealing it for him. And so when you think, well, gee, what underlies the fact that before the money, before the support, before he became the most popular politician, what did he have? And he had a revolutionary, progressive message that was undiluted, and also he took on both establishment parties, both establishments.
The big question is, though, is that will Bernie Sanders do this?
Yeah.
You know, that is the big question. I understand you guys went out and got petitions and kind of delivered it to. How many petitions did you end up getting?
We did. We got 50,000 petitions just an hour ago. I was over in his office, and we delivered it to them.
Do you think that Sanders would consider a third-party run? I mean, given that he seemed like, look, as soon as if I lose the nomination, I'll endorse the Democratic ticket, even though he wasn't independent in Vermont. Is that something that we could see in 2020, that he would really actually say, I'm going to lead a third-party charge?
I think it depends. I think it's up to us. It's a function of whether we show him that that's what we're ready for and that's what we want, you know. And I think that's what we have to do. That's our mission. That's why we created Draft Bernie for a People's Party, to show him that, you know what, when you campaigned against both establishment parties, you brought out tens of thousands of people, no matter where you went, across the country. And then, flash forward a few months forward, when you campaigned for Hillary Clinton, you would fill rooms with, sometimes you would get rooms of 150 people, 100 people. And so it shows that really, that's not the recipe for success. In 2016, we witnessed the most spectacular failure of an attempt to defeat the Republicans from a corporate position.
That's very true.
Well, and I think that's what you saw, is that, you know, just this idea that everybody just fits into one of two groups, and you have to, you know, get in line, which was a sign thing we heard a lot during the election, that there was this idea of just, you know, it's great that you have your little ideas in the primaries, but then you need to just, you know, the right thing to do is to do this. So one of the things you're going to have to do with an independent party, any independent party, is bring in the rest of the group. So the Green Party, Libertarians, that outreach. How we have a couple minutes, like a minute left. So what are you doing to bring in those people? Because they're kind of isolated right now.
And so one really important thing to establish is that even with Bernie Sanders trying his damnedest to bring people in the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party has actually lost people since November. It's still losing people like it was decades before. And so what that shows is that, and they have Trump on the other side too, that should be helping them. And so what that shows is that rather the American people are moving into independent status, and instead of fighting that current, we should go with it. We should go with them into independent status. And so whether Bernie chooses to join us or not, this is something that needs to be done, because like the example of the number of people he was turning out at Hillary rallies, and also the declining Democratic Party affiliation, what that shows is that it's not Bernie as a person, it's what he spoke for, and what he represents. That's what people want.
It wasn't about him, it was about the ideas and a new thought, and I think that's a really great thing.
So we need to bring these groups together, essentially.
Most definitely.
What a crazy idea.
I know.
Getting together and working toward common goals for the good of the people.
Yes. Nick, I want to thank you so much for coming down and talking with us about your efforts to draft Bernie Sanders. We'll definitely